there are people who use crystal bowls, so that's another mode of sound therapy. People who use tuning forks, that's another alternate sound therapy.
Music was never invented or discovered, but is something that is innate in us all. It comes as no surprise then that sound has been used in various cultures for centuries as a healing tool to cure many ailments. Today, music is utilized in medicine and spiritual growth. While it is still considered an alternative medical practice, there is some evidence to suggest that it helps improve our emotional and psychological health. In this episode, we'll be speaking to Nidhi Belani. Nidhi is a certified sound therapist. She was trained in Nepal near the Himalayas and is trained in the practice of ancient Tibetan Healing Bowls. Through personal and group sessions, Nidhi offers various types of sound therapies, including for relaxation, detoxification, and energy balancing. I very much look forward to having Nidhi join us today for the episode with Shifter Chubra to talk about what is sound therapy. So hi Nidhi, thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of Shift with Shubra and to find out all there is to know about sound therapy or sound healing. So could you maybe share a little bit about what exactly is sound therapy? Would you call it sound healing or is it sound therapy? And what are the different types that exist and why do they exist? Like what are their main benefits?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's an amazing thing that you're doing, connecting people where people can actually tap onto each other's potential and see what other people are doing out there. And I think it's really important. So for me, I actually would want to call it sound healing, to be very honest with you. But I call it sound therapy only because the word healing is not very easily digested by everyone. Healing is something that people can actually relate to, who have been in alternate, who have really been working with alternate modes of healing and things like that. So for most people who just want to experience sound, I usually refer to it as sound therapy. So there are a lot of different sound therapies, and for the purpose of today's episode, we will refer to it as sound therapy.
Okay, yeah.
So that everyone can relate to it. There are actually a lot of different sound therapies, and there are a lot of different sound therapists as well. So I particularly do sound therapies with Tibetan bowls, which are these. And I do have gongs and tinshas. That's what I use. So this is my tinsha.
Oh, nice.
So, but of course, as I said, there are people who use crystal bowls. So that's another mode of sound therapy. People who use tuning forks. That's another alternate sound therapy. Chanting, actually. Chanting in itself is actually sound.
A form of sound therapy, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, for that matter of fact, I totally believe that sound is all around us. Sound is within us. So at any point in time, we're actually healing ourselves with the sounds. It's just that we sometimes use it externally, sometimes we use it internally. Yeah.
And what can sound therapy do? So, I mean, for example, you're using gongs, bowls, and tingsha's. Do each one sort of affect a person differently? Like the benefit is slightly different. Can you explain a little bit more?
Sure. So maybe let's start with a little bit of basic physics.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yes, teacher. I was terrible at physics, but yes, try me.
So, everything vibrates at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
We know that, right? In fact, quantum physics describes that everything is basically connected with just vibrating strings of energy, right? Like even the rocking chair, even sitting, me talking, whatever, everything is basically sound, right? Yes. So at the end of the day, right, everything we hear or we do not hear basically has sound, and that sound is called resonance. And the frequency at which an object basically naturally vibrates, right? So similarly, our bodies also vibrate at a certain frequency. We're constantly vibrating at a certain frequency. Now, depending upon our lifestyle, depending upon what we eat, what we don't eat, what kind of thoughts do we have, positive, negative, basically our bodies vibrate at a certain frequency. So sometimes when we have negative thoughts, our bodies probably don't vibrate at such a high frequency or optimal frequency. Or sometimes when we have great positive thoughts, then we operate at a higher frequency. So basically, using tinshas or tuning forks or bowls, whatever that produces these kind of sounds, they basically resonate at a certain frequency.
Mm-hmm.
When they resonate at a certain frequency, that frequency is basically sort of an optimum frequency that you would want to align your bodies to, because that frequency is known as a healing frequency.
Right,
so
okay.
When you play basically a sound from a tinsha, the kind of resonance of the frequency that the thing is vibrating at is considered to be an optimum frequency for healing, for that matter of fact. And then when your body basically receives that frequency, it tries to resonate. So that's what happens, right? Sounds, it tries to balance it out. So that's the main purpose, and that's how our bodies. So when somebody's feeling really down, when somebody's energy is not probably, or the energy is not flowing at an optimum level. And if we go down into talking about energy, then basically it's the chakra, the energy that we have on the chakra level and stuff like that. So that's what we want to do. So when we play these bowls, tinshas, or everything, we're basically trying to align the energy of your body. If you want to go a little bit deeper, we're basically trying to align different energies at different energy centers, the chakras that we have in our body, the root chakra, heart chakra, our solar plexus, our throat chakra.
And are there different sounds and frequencies? Like, is there lower for the lower parts of your body, of the energy centers? Is it higher as you go higher? Like, is there a slight difference that way?
Yes, of course. When you're trying to relate to lower chakras, you would want to play certain sounds, and we're trying to relate to higher chakras, you would play certain sounds. Now, this is very different for people who are doing different therapies again, and depends on what mode of therapy that you're using as well. So for me, where I learned actually sound healing from was a place in Nepal, and they are actually called Sound Planetarium.
Okay.
So the way they actually align the bowls and everything is basically based on the names of the planets.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So they have like the bowl that I use for grounding is basically called an earth bowl.
Okay.
Because that is basically the frequency that this bowl resonates at, and it relates more to the grounding energy of the root chakra, or basically the lower chakras. But when it comes to, for example, the one that I use for third eye, or probably throat chakra, is called, what's it called? It's called SRI or something like that. Yeah. So that's how they basically have been. That's how I learned it, and that's how I practice it. But yes, you very rightly said there are different frequencies for different chakras, and depending upon what you want to tune or align your client to, you would probably use different sounds.
So what kinds of benefits? Because I know relaxation is one of the first things that most people think about. It's like, oh, listen to sound, like people listen to music to relax and chill out. And yeah. I would imagine sound therapy is also for relaxation, for example. But what other ailments can it help with? What other benefits can it do?
Okay, so primarily what usually these sounds do is, we all know about brain waves, right? When we're actually meditating, our brain actually goes into, or when we're sleeping, or when we're into deep sleep, basically go from beta to theta, right?
Yeah.
So theta is an ideal zone where we want to be when it comes to relaxation. So that's what primarily most sounds do when they play at certain frequencies. They actually entrain your brain waves.
The theta state, yeah.
Yeah, so they get you into the theta zone. So when you're in that theta zone, you're basically, and of course that is where you unconsciously release the healing power, right? And I guess you would know it more than I do, because of the sleep therapy.
It's both. It's definitely both. It's both in theta and it's in delta, which is the more deeper end of sleep, which is also for your physical body and stuff. But yes, in theta, that's where, your unconscious is releasing some healing already, because it's the most suggestive state.
Correct.
As well.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what it does. It basically puts you in that state to begin with, where you could have more focus, you could have more clarity, and you could basically, connect with your unconscious at the end of the day. So of course, at the end of the day, the most beneficial thing would be to get more relaxation, to feel more at ease, or at the same time, emotionally a little bit more comfortable, not so draining. So especially people who feel anxiety, people who are who deal with things like they're always nervous and things like that, or for that matter of fact, who are always very stressed out. So these are the people who would probably feel the most benefits. However, we could definitely go a little bit deeper with these kind of therapies, because I do have a lot of different therapies, from crisis management to aura management to actually even PMS, people who actually have PMS related issues. So when we play bowls in a certain frequency, we play bowls in certain different parts of the body, you could actually reach out to deeper levels. And we definitely do different therapies. So we start off with relaxation, but then based on what the client really wants to do and how they want to deal with certain situations, then we progress with different therapies.
What kind of ailments do people, so you mentioned PMS, for example, relaxation, anxiety. What other issues have your clients come to you with when they want to, where you've used sound therapy on them?
So as I said, issues can be on any level. They could be physical, mental, or emotional levels. So I have people who've come up with me by telling me that they had some sort of stomach disorder. I had one client who had issues with her digestion in general. So she always had upset stomach. So we did a combination of actually sound therapy plus oils to help her with that, because her digestion issues were not just because she was physically not consuming the right food or probably not eating at the right time. Actually, she's one of the most healthy people that I know. and she's taking regular meals and things like that. But she is very, very emotionally traumatized with what's happening in her relationship at this point in time. And that was basically direct, kind of impacting her digestive issues. So you know how it is when we have emotional issues, they actually reflect on the physical level and we don't even realize it. So that's what was happening with her. So we did a couple of therapies where we actually helped her with relaxation. We did a little bit of grounding for her because she was kind of all over the place. And we did a bit of crisis management to help her out with the relationship issues. And we topped it up with oils. And she actually told me that she feels definitely much better with her digestive issues at this point in time. And we're still in the therapy at this point in time.
So we talked about sound therapy and obviously its benefits and things like that. Is there a particular time of the day that people should be, like if they come to you to do sound therapy, if they want to do, can you do sound therapy on your own? Like, can people just go and buy a bowl and then just do it? Like, does it have to always be with a sound therapist or a certified sound person in sound therapy?
I wouldn't say that you have to have someone else doing it for you. You could definitely do it for yourself, but it's just that if you're constantly engaging with the fact that you have to hit the bowl, then you might not be able to engage with yourself because you have to be constantly coming out of your unconsciousness. Because as I said, we are able to connect with ourselves at a very unconscious level most of the times. We can't do it on a very conscious level all the time. So to be able to hit the bowl, you have to be conscious, and then you have to go back into your unconscious, conscious, unconscious. So it wouldn't be a very easy thing to do if you want to do it on your own. But yes, like what I have told you, you could play the sounds in the background and then you could use the oils to accelerate the process, or you could probably just, connect with yourself while the bowls are being played in the back. But if you want to do it with a bowl, it would be a little bit difficult. So in that sense, I think it's better to have someone doing it for you. So yeah, you could reap the benefits of the whole process.
And if someone were to come to you, is there a better time to do these therapies in general? Like, could you do it at morning, noon, and night? Or are there certain frequencies or certain therapies that you prefer to do at a certain time of day?
So in general, it doesn't really make much of a difference. But then, of course, like, for example, when you do chanting on full moon, people say it's much more beneficial because of the resonating effects of the vibrations is much higher and things like that. But otherwise, I personally don't think it makes any difference whether you do it at any time of the day. But what really matters is what you're going to do after the therapy. I think that's really important because, for example, you happen to go through a therapy and then you walk into like a meeting where people are shouting at each other. I don't think you'll be able to reap the benefits. So you would rather want to do it at a time and a place where you could follow it up with a bit more relaxation, where you could spend a little bit of time with yourself, engage with your own unconscious to see what have you witnessed. Or because when you're doing these kind of therapies, right, as I said, it is not just about the physical effects of the vibration that you feel, but a lot of people, like for me personally, when I did the therapy for the first time, I cried so much. So everybody has a different experience because as I said, when you're connecting with your unconscious thoughts, there's a lot of things that come up for a lot of people, because probably those thoughts needs to be addressed. Your unconscious is bringing them up to you. Or for that matter of fact, you might end up thinking about a few things. So you would want to engage in those thoughts a little bit. So that's what I would personally feel that people should do.
Right. So if you're going to ever do the session, try to make sure that you haven't got a massive meeting booked right after it. Like have some time where you can reflect, go with yourself, be with yourself, and you're not like engaging in like, I don't know, a rock party of some kind right after or something. Okay. I mean, we touched on this very, very briefly because it was a question, but you started talking about it without me asking about it. But could you share how you actually got into sound therapy and like where you then went to get trained in it?
Oh, yeah. So for me, actually, it was a calling. And as cliche or maybe funny it sounds, but I actually do not remember what instigated me. I only remember that I knew I had to do it. So I got into this whole, alternate healing and everything, I think about 6 years ago when I chanced upon this course that I was doing, which was to do with unconscious mind. So I'm an NLP coach, as you know, right? So it talks about how to use your unconscious and things like that. And that was very, very intriguing, just to understand how your unconscious works. And then one thing led to the other. Then I met my friend Paro, who had just started. I was always meditating even when I was young. I used to have my rosary and I used to do meditation on my own. But then, I learned different kinds of meditation and I went to do a silent retreat. And then, I don't know, at some point in time during this whole time, I just had a calling that I had to learn sound healing.
Right.
And I don't know if it was a vision, what was it, because I don't really remember it right now, but I just remember that I had to learn this. Like, it was not crystal bowls, it was not tuning forks, it was just the bowls and the gongs. Yeah, so it was just very, very particularly the Tibetan bowls. And and I think for the longest time I couldn't figure it out as to where should I do it from, because I went to a couple of people in Singapore to see how I can learn from them. There's a Japanese lady here that teaches sound healing. She does retreats in Bali or something. I almost actually booked it, and then for some reason I didn't do it because I think I was supposed to go to Nepal to do it. And when I actually booked my flights, my flight got cancelled. And I couldn't go. So then eventually I think I managed to go. And so I went to Nepal. There is this place called Sound Planetarium, where I learned it from. The reason I actually wanted to learn from there was because of two reasons. One, it was Nepal. And, a lot of things, this has a huge connection to basically Nepal in general. So that was one. And second, they had a very different concept, as I said, they just didn't teach me how to use bowls in different chakras and frequencies. But they even talked about, how planets, their movements and everything actually affects our system. So the way they actually have figured out the names for the bowls and everything, and how they have different therapies related to the frequency and how you align the bowls and how you play them actually as well. So for example, when I'm doing a therapy for someone who's doing relaxation, then I'll probably play the bowls maybe in the sequence from base all the way to crown and then crown all the way to the base. But if I'm doing a therapy where I'm doing crisis management, say for example, then I'm not just playing the bowls in that sequence, and I'll be probably playing bowls from heart to solar to sacral, then different ways to play it.
And then you would put the bowls on people. You would put it on the side of people.
Yes.
It's around and also on the person during the therapy in that sense.
Yes, around and on both.
Okay.
But when I do group sessions, sometimes I'm not able to do it on the body because group sessions don't really allow you.
Put on you, but not on you. No.
Yeah. But I think that's also because I have very limited bowls. But I guess if people were to experience these kind of group sessions, if they go to places where everybody gets to experience bowls, then people can definitely experience that in group sessions as well.
Awesome. Okay. And so I think in terms of success stories, are there any more that you can share? Success stories that you've had of clients and how sound therapy has helped them out. So you mentioned about the one woman about the digestive issues and stuff. Is there any? I mean, I kind of shared as well my little success story with it as well. But are there any other clients that you can share about? Maybe one or two more stories.
Sure. So I had another friend of mine who was going through a really bad relationship breakup a few years back, and she actually had quite a fair bit of success with the whole therapy. And also because, my therapies are not just do the session and then you go home. My therapies involve a lot of like reflecting, talking, and just going back to see how you can work with your thoughts that have come up and things like that. So from that perspective, she actually felt really, really beneficial from the whole therapy. She felt the way she handled the whole situation was much better because instead of, fighting, arguing, and having a really bad traumatic experience, she was able to come out of it very, very positively because of the therapy and, of course, because of the talking and everything that we did. So that was one. Another, actually, a really good friend of mine, so this is... Actually, yeah, this is quite close to my heart as well. I usually don't share it. Okay. So there is a friend of mine who was actually not very close, but she's my husband's friend's wife. So she was pregnant at that point in time, and we did the therapy. She just wanted to experience it and stuff like that. And during the therapy, I kind of felt that she's although she looked very happy, she looked very happy with the process, the baby being born and everything, right? But somewhere deep down, she had this anxiety because they knew that it's a baby girl. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And the family actually wanted a boy. And they hadn't disclosed it to the family, but the family kept saying that, we're expecting a boy and things like that. Although everything is great now. Everything is great and they treat the girl fantastically and stuff like that. But she was kind of going through that. And when we did the therapy, I told her that, are you having thoughts about the gender of the baby? So she was like, yeah. She was like, yeah, I'm quite stressed about it. So that kind of helped her. So I basically, when I was doing the therapy, I helped her a little bit with her heart chakra and with her confidence, the heart chakra, so and a little bit of the throat chakra as well, so that she could find a little bit of a balance when later she has to deal with it if it comes to a point.
Wow. Okay. And are there any sort of like do's and don'ts with the sound therapy? Like, can anyone do it at any age? Pregnant women, all of this. Like, is there any sort of like people who shouldn't do at any point in time?
Yes. Well, before we get to that, I want to share about my dog.
Yeah. Share about Hibiki. Yes, your dog. Yeah.
So I personally feel like, I don't know, I think you've noticed this, right? Whenever you come for therapies, he will actually lie under the bed and he will just sleep.
Yeah.
So he really likes it. Like, for most dogs, sound is something that makes them very awake and aware, right? Because dogs are very, very sensitive to sound in general, right? But whenever he experiences sound healing, he just goes off to sleep. He finds it very relaxing and he just loves being here and just sleeping. and I do feel that in general, using oils and using these kind of things around him has definitely made him a calmer dog in comparison to other dogs of his size that I have seen in general. And I think you've seen it, right? Whenever you've come here,
he very much.
Bark.
He's zen. He totally zenned out dog. Like, and he's only how old is he now?
He's about 2 plus.
Yeah, he's only 2. So like I mean, that's still typically young, right? Like as a dog. And if you meet my dog, he's skittish still. Like, we gotta diffuse more, really. But yes, this Hibiki is so zen. It's like, it's unbelievable, really, how zen he is.
Yeah, he's really quiet. I feel the oils and the whole sound thing is definitely played a part.
Yeah.
Yes. So going back to your question about who and who cannot use and do's and don'ts. In general, there is no negative effect that can happen from the sound therapy. So there is, because you're not dealing with anything on a physical level, like you're not injecting anything in the body or anything like that. So even though you are probably dealing with a physical issue, but not physically injecting, so you're just playing sounds, and the sounds are basically all optimum frequency, so they're not like music that you wouldn't want to hear.
Yeah.
So in general, it doesn't have any sort of harmful effect or negative effect on people. So there is, I wouldn't think that there's anybody who wouldn't want to do it. But of course, when it comes to people who have any physical issues, like in the sense, my mom, she can't really lie down for a really long period of time. Like she starts feeling numbness in her legs sometimes. Then you probably have to, have an alternate mode. She might want to say, oh, I can't do it for a really long time with her. Like I can't do an hour session with her. I'll probably like break it up into 5 minutes or 10 minutes and things like that. Or for people who have any, like, although I put the bowls on the body, but if someone has gone through like a fracture or something like that, and that part of the body is more fragile in comparison to other parts of the body, then obviously I would need to know that, because I mean, the bowl is a little heavy. The bowl is like about 250 grams. So I wouldn't want to put it on a part of the body. So that's one. And for pregnant women in general, I wouldn't actually play it very, very close. I wouldn't really put it on them, but I'll put it on the side at the bottom and things like that.
So, I mean, essentially, like a child could do it, an older person could do it. It just might mean that the placement of the bowls are slightly in different places rather than on the person, and the position of the person instead of lying down, which typically the therapy requires. It's better for the effects for the person to be lying down horizontally. Yeah, during the therapy. But then obviously if they cannot, then you do it also when they're sitting as well. Okay. Cool. Well, I think that's been so much information. Let's end it with like one more question. What is the shift that you want to create in the world with your work through your work for your clients or for the world?
I think primarily my aim of doing all this is just to be able to share my experience, because I have reaped a lot of benefit from alternate modes of healing. I'm not just saying that sound healing in general, using words in general, but alternate healing does really help. So I would definitely want people to be a bit more aware of other modes of healing, except for just taking medicines or just injecting themselves on a regular basis to feel healthier. And these kind of therapies help you to connect with yourself a little bit more on an unconscious level, which we don't really do it on a regular basis, because most of us can't really sit in meditation. We find it very difficult. So when we go to these kind of therapies, you have no choice but to get into a meditative place where you can connect with your unconscious a little bit more. So that's what I want to do. I just want people to be aware of these therapies, that they exist, and they shouldn't hesitate to try it, because at the end of the day, it allows you to relate to your unconscious a little bit better. And then you can actually heal your body through different therapies and not just rely on medication. So that's the purpose of it, I believe.
That sounds awesome. And I think I resonate very much with the same sort of message as well, is that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, is that I want people to understand that there are different therapy modes, modalities that exist out there, and different ones work for different people. So if you're looking for a different modality to help you on your journey of wellness to well-being, then please definitely seek out people like Nidhi and all the other practitioners that are featured on this podcast to enhance your life a little bit better. All right. Well, thank you so much, Nidhi. I hope everyone has learned a thing or two. I definitely have. But thank you so much for sharing all that you did today.
Great. It was really nice to have the experience and an opportunity. So thanks for doing that. And I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, same here.